before we get started with this time lapse, I'm going to give you your very first tip, and that is going to be inspiration. I got the inspiration for this build from this build right here, made by Smallishbeans. So for inspiration, you guys really need to find something. It can be a real life house, it can be a Minecraft house. If you're making just a normal house, you have to have something to base it off of. You have to have an idea of what you want it to look like before you start. And so finding someone else's build and saying, I want it to somewhat look like that can really work. And so as we watch this time lapse, I'd like you guys to just see the similarities between both of this build and my own. And hopefully you guys can see that I didn't just copy the build, but I took it and I did something else with it, something that I saw and I wanted to do. So let's start this time lapse in 3, 2, 1. Well, just to show you guys, this build took around about 10 hours. And no. Once again, I'm not a madman. I'm not. This is why I haven't uploaded in a month. It's because I built this over the course of 2 weeks, and then I have been editing it ever since. So yeah, that's why it's taking so long. But I mean, this time I went for quality over quantity. So I hope you guys enjoy it more. I mean, that's the goal. And with that, we're going to get into our second tip, which has to be palette. I laid out all of my blocks before I even started building. I came up with what I wanted it to look like, well, what the blocks I wanted to use. I chose what kind of wood I wanted, what kind of roof outline I wanted, what the roof was supposed to be made out of, and what the walls are made out of. And then I just made the base outline, and then I did the rest. So having all of your blocks set out at the beginning, your palette, is a really good way to start out your build. And I mean, how do you choose them? There's so many blocks in the game. How do you choose which ones you want to use? And once again, for this, you can go look at other people's builds, or you can really just look it up. What blocks complement each other? But for your walls, it's really a good idea to make it not just one color. If you look carefully, I also have a different gradient instead of just black and gray. I have the darkest gray moving up slowly, being lighter. And this really helps. Even with the black, I have dark going up to lighter colors, and I like the concrete powder. It looks really nice for the walls, but it kind of helps you to just separate the build a bit, and it looks a lot neater and not so, I don't know, just perfect. See, with the roof, I used 3 different blocks, and even though the majority was polished deep slate, I mean, as soon as you mix other things in, it starts to look less just perfect. Houses are not meant to be exactly perfect. They're not meant to be, for example, on the chimney, I used multiple blocks. They're not all meant to be made out of stone brick, because that just looks plain and boring. You have to use different kinds of blocks to just separate everything. Once we had our roof, as you can see from my build, I outlined it in red nether bricks, but you can use any block you want, really, and it doesn't really matter what color you use or what block you use. It's good. It's kind of nice to have an outline. So for the roof, you have to have, it should be bigger than the inside on this Viking style roof. This roof should be bigger than the middle gray blocks. So or whatever block you're using. Now, tip number 4 on detailing, I gotta say it has to be don't overdo it. I mean, you see builds like this that are just covered, totally covered with stuff, and then you see my build here that doesn't have. It just has what it needs. It doesn't need anything else. Even for the windows, I didn't go over the top. I decorated up there. I like the gold block. I thought that was really cool. Anyway, but not only did I not overdo it, I just made little roofs, little things to connect everything together. But I did everything in a similar fashion as well, so that really helps a lot to just do everything similarly. As you can see, most of the windows I outlined in these, which looks nice. And for the windows too, you can use something other than glass. You can have glass panes, or you can use fences, or in some cases you can even do this where it's not just a window at the side, it's a balcony. So that one is important too. And for here, this one's at a corner. It's completely different. So there's really nothing symmetrical about this house, and that's important as well, is that you don't want to have everything perfect. I mean, some of it should be symmetrical, but all of it doesn't need to be the same. This one is 4 blocks wide, this one is 2 blocks wide, this one is 1 to the left, and you can really see it helps. And now we're going to move on to tip number 5, and that has got to be for terraforming. So in this clip right here, you can see that this whole entire wall right here was a ravine. And all I had to do was take some TNT and just blip it out of existence, and then I can use it for what I want. What I did here, and what you guys need to learn how to do, is use the terrain that's already here, and then build off of it. It makes it a whole lot easier and requires a lot less work. As far as the terraining goes, I mean, you really just want to keep everything flush for the most part. Try and blend everything together, but it's good to add in some rocks here and there. I added a crap ton of flowers, and I made most of them be pink and purple colors, and I think it's just beautiful. I mean, I had the trees be all similar as well. I made my own custom trees, and guys, you cannot have a build that looks good without terraforming. That's just the bottom line. If you look at this build right here, it just looks pretty bland, doesn't it? I mean, it's a nice build, but there's nothing around it. But then as soon as you can see all the trees and the greenery, it goes to a whole nother level. One thing I did is that I used coarse dirt around the roots, which I thought really helped. On the trees, you just make your trunk first, and then you put on the leaves after, and I did a pretty good job. I've got some bushes in as well, and I used some of these exalia leaves, and they look absolutely beautiful. And the nice thing is, everything is consistent. I didn't do one thing different, completely random that doesn't fit. Everything fits together nicely. So all of the trees have rooted dirt and coarse dirt around it. I did that with every single tree that I made. With the pond, I have these spore blossoms up here. There's one over here as well. And then over here, on this pond, I have spore blossoms as well. So you kind of have to do terraforming in a similar fashion, is what I'm saying. You don't want to just do everything randomly. And that moves us on to tip number 6. And this tip is really not that complicated. It's just, if you want your build to stand out, you want to have more than one structure in it. Just like with the terraforming, you don't want it to be just the house. You can make another shed, or you can make a path like I did. And a path that not only goes around the house in a cement-like pattern, but then goes around here, and you see this path, it goes all the way around, and then I can use a bridge across the water, a bridge across this ravine right here. And having more than one structure just makes everything, it seems purposeful. It seems like it has a use. There's a reason for it to be here. So that's something that's really crucial as well. And for tip number 7, it's going to be on interior. And interior is something that's extremely hard to get right. I mean, I'm not that great at it myself, but there's one thing that you do need to know that I think I've found out from doing this, is that when you do your interior, you want to give everything a purpose. When you make a house, it's not meant to just be some empty space filled with nothing that has no purpose. I mean, you need to fill it and make it look functional, make it look like you could actually live here. So there's things to do everywhere, and I've filled up the entire space. Over here we've got barrels, we've got some redstone lamps, a chest, an anvil. I've got a table over here, a lectern and a loom. I've got some shelves. Everything is being used. We got some storage area back here, a bed, and a table, and another table. This one's more of a desk, but and we've got a campfire. We got a fireplace. So yeah, you just wanna use the whole space and make it seem functional, makes it seem useful. And then see, like outside, I have this one corner that's not the same as the rest of the house where I use this green tarp, I think, and then there's a grill out here. It is meant to be functional. It has a purpose. So that's something you want to keep in mind. I mean, if you look at the builds from some of the best creators out there, some of the best builders, if you look carefully, every single build that they make has a purpose. There's some reason that is built. There's some backstory for it. So that's another thing that's really important. And you know how earlier I was saying this build took 10 hours? That's another tip, is that you don't have to do everything in one go. You don't have to take 10 hours straight and build this entire thing, because you'll tire yourself out and you'll get exhausted. So I took a whole 2 weeks to build mine, and you know, oh my, that was magic. Anyway, you don't have to do it in one sitting. It's not what it's about. You can take time to build the whole thing. Don't tire yourself out. And there's one more tip I have for this, and it's that no matter what, if you want to improve, you have to find the time and find it in yourself to do better. You have to practice, and you have to practice over and over and over again if you want to get good at building. And I'm most certainly not good yet. I've only practiced a couple builds, but if you look at my first build on my channel, you can immediately see that I've improved a lot since my last one. So if you take the time, if you do the research, if you look at some of the best builders and you say, what is so different about them, you can start to see improvement. Going along with that last tip, I just want you guys to remember that I'm not an expert here. I've not spent that long building, but these are just some things that I have started to figure out as I'm practicing. So just, yeah, most of it you guys need to figure out on your own. This is just what I've learned by trial and error, and yeah, and in doing research, I watch videos on some of the best people who have tips for me, and I take notes. I literally take notes on my phone. I mean, if that's what you got to do, that's what you got to do. But it's actually good to have some notes to see when you don't know what to do. You just look at your notes and you're like, oh, I can do that, or I can do this, or I can do that, or I can spin in circles forever and ever and ever and ever. Yeah, anyway, you get the point. So with that, we have reached the end of our video, and I thank you so much for watching. If you would please, you guys, I have 96 subs right now, which is amazing, but if you guys would consider subscribing, it'd mean a lot to me, and it helps me out, because you know how hard it is to get traction, and if you don't, then you should really figure it out, because it's awful. People just, nobody sees it. If you're watching this video, it's a miracle you've made it this far. It just doesn't happen. Yeah, so have a fabulous day, evening, night, midnight. I don't know what time it is. Just, yeah, goodbye, Happy New Year. And oh, one more thing. I have just finished ordering a graphics card, so that'll be coming soon, which means you guys can watch my videos in not so blurry screen. Yeah, it's not the best, but if you aren't watching this on 1080p right now, you might want to go change that setting in YouTube, because yeah, it's probably going to be blurry if you're not. Anyway, I'm done blabbering. See y'all.